So here I am on the digital whiteboard, and normally you'll see me on the physical whiteboard, but today I'm on the digital. Let me know in the comments if it's a little bit more clear. I want you to be able to see the text when I'm going over certain concepts. So on the left-hand side, these are the common misunderstandings or the misconceptions that people have about paying debt collection companies, right? And on the right-hand side, we have the most effective ways to go about dealing with it. So very quickly, number one, a paid collection or charge-off is still frowned upon in the eyes of most lenders. So if you have a charge-off or several collections on your credit report right now, and you want to do the right thing, you want to get your credit back in shape, it's going to be very easy to just pick up the phone, get one of the letters that they send to you, and just give them your credit card and just pay. But what I want you to know is there's a way to do it. There's a better way to do that actually. Because if you pay a collection that's reporting on your credit report right now, 99% of the time, that account, that derogatory account, is still going to negatively impact your credit score. Now let's jump over to Experian, because as always, I gotta go to the horse's mouth if I say anything. So I'm on Experian, and I had this highlighted. So it says, when you pay or settle a collection and it is updated to reflect a zero balance on your credit reports, your FICO 9 and your Vantage Score 3 and 4 may improve. However, because older scoring models do not ignore paid collections, scores generated by these older models will not improve. So what does this mean? So what this means is your Vantage score, where you primarily see at websites like Credit Karma, right? So if you pay off your collection to zero and the status changed to paid collection or some variation of that, your Credit Karma score, your Vantage score, may see a boost. But as I always mention in a lot of these videos, most lenders, the majority of the banks and the majority of the lenders, they don't mess with Vantage. They don't mess with, let me go back. They said FICO 9. You'll potentially be able to see an improvement with FICO 9. But remember in my other videos, FICO 9 is not the most widely used scoring model either. So the moral of the story is, if the banks, if the credit card issuers, if the lenders that you're trying to do business with, if they're still using FICO 8, or as you know, most lenders, most mortgage lenders, they still use FICO 254. If they run your report and they still see a collection on your account, that still does not look good, right? It still doesn't look good. It still looks like a derogatory account. Number two, there is no law that requires a debt collector to remove your accounts off of your reports. So you might be aware that there are laws that state that if somebody is putting anything on your credit report, like a collection or a certain debt, after 7 years, in most states and most accounts, about 7.5 years, they need to get that removed. There is no law that states if you pay a debt collection company that they are required to remove it off your account. So again, you're trying to get your credit cleaned up. These creditors are calling you, you pay them, and then you still have a derogatory item still on your credit reports. Now, of course, you can still request that. You can ask them to remove that, but this is just something to keep in mind. Just by paying a collection company does not guarantee that they're going to remove it from your account. And we're trying to clean up our credit reports completely. Number three, making payments may reinstate the statute of limitation for debt collection. Check state laws. So what does this mean? So if you pull your credit report, there's something called the date of last activity. So in most states, and every state is a little bit different. Some states are 5 years, some states are 7 years, some states are 6 years. There are laws that protect us as consumers that states a debt collection company or a creditor can't come, 10 years later and say, hey, you owe me $2,000 from an account that you had from 12 years ago, 10 years ago. There are certain laws that state that if enough time has passed, that these debt collection companies, they can't file suit, they can't try to chase you, they can't try to continually collect if the debt passes a certain age. And that's what we call the statutes of limitations. Now, here's the problem. If you have a 5-year-old collection that has been sitting on your credit report and you want to take care of it, the first thing you need to do is you need to check your local state laws and see what is the time period of the statutes of limitation for that type of loan or that type of account. It may be 6 years, it may be 7 years. You need to check. If you go ahead and you re-engage with that creditor, and then you set up a payment plan and you make 2, 3, 4, 5 payments, right? And then you stop and say, oh no, I want to dispute this now. Or now I'm a little bit aware of how the game works. Let me try to fight. Let me try to not pay them anymore. Let me switch it up and say, no, I'm not going to pay. After you re-engage with them, what you didn't realize is you may have reinstated or reset that shot clock for the statutes of limitations. So this is why I say it's always important. Always, 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 always important. Before you dispute anything, before you add anything onto your account, before you try to do anything to your credit profile, make sure you know exactly what you're doing before you start calling collection companies, sending out letters. Like, realize what you're doing beforehand. Otherwise, it's going to make it harder to try to get the goal that you want if you've done the missteps in the beginning. You got to be clear on what your desired goal is. So now that leads me into the right-hand side, which is plan ahead, right? Plan ahead. Don't ignore, don't wait till the last minute. I always see this with people who have found that the home that they wanted, right? Their landlord is treating them unfairly. Now at the 11th hour, now they're trying to look at the credit. Now they're trying to figure out the next move. They're trying to move to the next place, or they're trying to get a home loan to buy this home, but they're doing it at the last minute. If you think that there's even a slight chance that you might be looking to move or to purchase a home or to purchase a vehicle, you need to start today. Start right now in pulling your credit reports, seeing what the discrepancies are, seeing what's on there. Pull that information in front of you, because if you give yourself enough time, if you give yourself 6, 7, 8 months to figure out what's on your credit report and you try different strategies, what you may realize is you may be able to dispute, let's say 3, 4, 5 accounts, and you may only have to settle maybe 1 or 2 accounts, versus if your back is up against the wall and you have, let's say, 7 collections and you're waiting to the last minute and you have to move, and now you're paying and settling all at the same time. This is what you want to get away from, right? The more time that you give yourself, the more options that you have to be able to deal with all of these accounts that are negatively impacting your credit. So that leads me to point number 2. Send out your dispute letters to the credit bureaus. FCRA is your friend, right? Check out my YouTube video. There's a whole bunch of content I already have. Check out the website, creditcodes.com. I'll put a link down below. I give you a PDF of sample dispute letters, the addresses for the credit bureaus, strategies on how to deal with the debt collection companies that are calling you and harassing you. I have a lot of information there. Go ahead and just download that for free. You don't have to pay anything. Just download that for free. Get your information and start sending out those round 1 letters, and you'll be surprised. You're going to be able to get traction. Things are going to fall off your credit score naturally just by sending out your dispute letters. Number 3, validation letters to the creditors. This is another option that you have. As you're sending things over to the credit bureaus, you can be sending validation letters over to the creditors, right? You're going after the credit bureaus, and there are things that you can send over to the debt collection companies. As I always say, there are so many laws that protect the consumer that a lot of the credit bureaus, a lot of these debt collection companies, they are misstepping and they're going over the line of what they're allowed and what they're not allowed to do. And a lot of times you can catch them on certain technicalities. So the point is, you have options. Don't just settle. Don't just pay immediately. Try to do a few things beforehand before you just start giving people your credit card and start paying. And lastly, point number 4, pay for delete. As I always said, once you're already going and disputing with the bureau, just sending validation letters over to the creditors. Over time, if you're doing things in the right way, you may be able to get several of these items off of your credit report, and that's what's going to boost up your credit score. On some of these accounts, they may be a little bit more stubborn. Again, if you're up against a specific deadline, you may need to just do a pay for delete, right? I have no problem with that, but just make sure that you have everything in writing before you give them a penny. Otherwise, these shady debt collection companies may try to pretend like they didn't understand what you said over the phone, or that the amount, you misheard the amount. Now the amount is a little bit more because they tacked on gotcha fees and late fees and NAP fees and transfer fees and all these other fees. The first thing, make sure that it's in writing, and then always try to shoot for 30 to 50% of what the original amount is. These debt collection companies, they normally pick up these accounts for pennies on the dollar. Try to shoot for 30%, 40%, 50%. Try to go for that range when you're trying to pay for delete, right? You want to make sure that you're cleaning up completely. You want to clean up your credit report. Having collections with paid on it is not going to help you. That designation is still going to communicate the fact that at one point in time, you missed payments, you could not take care of the credit, that's not going to look good in the eyes of the lenders. So the best thing to do is to try to get rid of it completely. Quickly recap, make sure you plan ahead, send out your round 1 dispute letters to the credit bureaus, send out your validation letters to the creditors, try to get some of those accounts off. And remember, when you take something off of your credit report, you can still go back and pay them off, like a charged off account. You can still make that relationship whole by paying them. This video is primarily for how to clean up your credit report to ensure that you have the best credit scores, right? And finally, pay for delete. There's nothing wrong with paying a debt collection company. Just make sure it's in writing. Make sure that you've done your due diligence beforehand. Make sure you have checked the statutes of limitation laws of your particular state. Make sure you do your homework, and the only way that you're going to know that is if you do bullet point number 1, which is plan ahead, know what's on your credit report, and then from there you can come out with a specific game plan to make sure your credit report is where it needs to be in order to buy the home, that car, whatever it is that you're trying to do, right? So that is the end of the video. Hopefully you got some gems from that. If you did, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, comment down below. And again, let me know if you prefer the digital whiteboard over the physical. Hopefully this is a little bit easier to read. But either way, I'm going to catch you out in the next video. Peace.